Well, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome again to Baby Steps. Peggy Simpson, my dear friend, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well, thank you. How are you?
I'm doing well. We were just chatting before we went live on here. It's just an awkward moment right now
Mm-hmm.
that
It
we're
is.
that we're going through and living with. I love the fact that we're doing these baby steps. What you provide us with over the last several episodes, was just amazing on becoming a better you and putting it all together there. That was just really it made you really stop and look and think about what are your own personal priorities and what really matters, and maybe how you return to something you thought you couldn't accomplish and you really can.
Yep. Well, thank you. I appreciate your enthusiasm and the whole idea was for hopefully it will be helpful to someone. I've really enjoyed it, but now I'm very excited to see what you have for us today.
Well, funny you mentioned that. Let's get right into it because it is. I think it lends itself very well to a follow up to what you so beautifully set the foundation for us on, and that is. Let me get this slideshow going. Come on. All right. What I have for you guys is called the 4 steps to empowerment. And the subtopic is, does your iPEG need an upgrade? And as you can imagine, iPEG is an acronym. And we're going to hit the first letter of the iPEG today. But I really want you to think about empowerment and think about the term of personal empowerment as opposed to personal development, to really empower yourself. So the I in iPEG is know your intuition. And a person I think we all can agree upon that's a pretty bright individual by the name of
Mm-hmm.
Albert Einstein once said, the intuitive mind is a sacred gift, and the rational mind is a faithful servant. And we've created a society that honors the servant and has forgotten the gift. And he went to another quote that I think really, for me, breaks that down into to something you can really absorb, and that is the only real valuable thing is intuition. Peggy, any thoughts before we get into it?
Well, I think that's just an amazing concept coming from this individual.
Mhm.
Yeah. Um, so I can't wait to see where this goes because um, it isn't something that I've ever given a lot of time or thought to.
Mhm.
But I do think that intuition is a gift. But I think that we can learn how to improve that gift, how to make it stronger, and how to trust it. But I'm going to leave that alone and let you go forward.
Well, this can be fun because the very first thing he talks about is that society and social norms influence our intuition. And because you've read it. I'm working on a novel right now that societal norms dictate how these two families can interact and react. And we just had that same conversation. When you look at things currently going on in our society, social norms have a lot of influence. Some people may call it fake news. In fact, I heard someone yesterday, and if you heard it too, Peggy, maybe you can remember who said it, but they said, if you watch the news, only watch the last 5 minutes, because the last 5 minutes of news is a feel-good story. And I thought, wow, that's pretty powerful. So what is intuition? Well, it's when our mind, our body, and our spirit align. Once that happens, it is activated. And what it really does is it reflects the desires of your heart. So it's your heart working with your mind, if you will. And the question then becomes is, do you see intuition as a built-in BS detector? And you know what BS stands for. So do you see intuition as a built-in BS detector? Is that something that you see as a way in your gut, you go, you know what, I really shouldn't do this. Or if someone's trying to tell you something or sell you something, you might say, hey, this isn't true. What that really means is the heart knows things that the mind cannot explain. You may not know why it's BS. You may not be able to articulate why it's BS, but in your gut, in your heart, you know that it is. And intuition becomes the difference then between thinking and knowing, between trying and caring, and between cause and effect. Thoughts, Peggy?
Yeah, I think I get what you're saying with the BS detector, and I think it certainly does. But I think the reason it does is because I would consider intuition a lighthouse.
Mm-hmm.
Because it really is your ability to just know something without needing any conscious validation.
Right.
It's that gut feeling. It's you just know.
Mm-hmm.
You just know. And when you just know, you are all those things, I mean, you just go. You're ready for immediate action. There's no second guessing, asking someone else's opinion. There's none of that. You just know. You just know.
I love the analogy of a lighthouse because it becomes a beacon then. And you just know at that point in time. And what a great synopsis of this, because it leads us right into how to trust your intuition and when to trust your intuition. And it's what you said, you understand immediately without conscious reasoning. It's where your gut is actually at times overtaking your subconscious, and your gut is saying, no, don't go there. You know what the consequences are. Where the subconscious or something may be tempting you to at least try it. When you have intuition, I thought this is pretty interesting. Your understanding is perfectly accurate. When your intuition is so strong, it's perfectly accurate that it is not the result of education or experience. What you realize is that this is the fact for yourself. And what may be the fact for you may not be the fact for someone else. That your intuition keeps you in line, and that your point of view then starts to align with your intuition. What do you think about the statement about that intuition is not the result of education or experience?
I think it's absolutely true,
Mm-hmm.
because I think our education and experience can cause us to question, second guess our intuition.
Right.
If we allow it, which is where we allow the mind to take over rather than listening to our heart.
Mm-hmm.
How many times do we tell people, don't try to analyze it, follow your gut, follow your heart, right? And that's what we're really alluding to, is follow your intuition. What is your inner being, your innermost inner being that only you
Mm-hmm.
can hear?
Right.
What is it telling you?
Mm-hmm.
And so many times we fight that.
Mm-hmm.
We have a tug of war with that,
Mm-hmm.
because our inner conversation and our intuition may want us to go left.
Right.
And every rational thought says go right.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it is, like I said, it isn't something that I consciously think about every day, but in listening to this, I think it's absolutely true.
Yeah, I agree. And I love the little graphic in there about trust, the low, medium, and high. Trust is something that a number of people struggle with.
Mm-hmm.
And trust, I personally believe you can trust someone else fully unless you trust yourself. Because if you don't trust yourself, you're not trusting your intuition. So how do you know your intuition may tell you that what you see in this other person is maybe a false trust
Right.
that you have with them.
Right. Right. I totally agree that if you're not confident in your awareness of your intuition, your core values, who you are, right? And you're not actively prepared to listen to that,
Right.
then trusting another person may be something that you're cautious of because you know you're not strong enough to pull away from them if you need to, or you're afraid they may, because you're a follower, right, they may lead you down the wrong path. This is a very deep subject. Very deep subject. Very deep subject.
Give everyone just a little bit of a heads up. The way this came about, Peg and I have been talking about developing some new content, doing some things, and I ran across my notes from when I went through some life coaching training, and it was called alchemy training. And this was one of the series of things I had to respond to and research and to work with. And it's incredibly deep. And I think one of the things that you may have some struggle with is realizing what is fact for yourself is not necessarily fact for others. And I think at a very high level, the analogy I can use there is religion. There's so many different religions, and the basis of one religion is how you believe, and that you believe is the fact. But for another religion, that may not be it. But the core of all of that is a belief in you being the best person you can become. Does that make some sense?
Yeah, it does. That makes sense. Yeah. I think, intuition is a little bit more difficult, I think, for me to expound on because it's very hard to put into words.
Yes.
That feeling when you just know.
Exactly.
Right? Or that feeling, when you have a sense that you need to call someone. Something's going on. You don't even know what it's just a sense. That's all I can say. There's just some inner direction that says do this.
Right.
And you do it. And 9 times out of 10, there's some reason that it was important for you to do it at that time.
Exactly.
Right. So I think it's I think a lot of people miss their intuition. I think a lot of people are not tuned into it.
Right.
Partly because they don't trust it.
Exactly.
So they haven't allowed that voice to become stronger because they haven't followed it enough to know that it's a good guide, to know that it is that lighthouse to make everything bright.
Right.
And totally make it clear for you to see absolutely where you're going. But if you don't use it, if you don't allow it to guide you,
right,
then you don't trust it.
Exactly right. So let's look at intuition. And you just hit the nail on the head right there. That intuition must be validated by learning to trust it. And that graphic represents your heart and your mind shaking hands and aligning that you're learning to trust it. And the only way to know your intuition is to trust your intuition. And you had a great example that you just felt like you had to do it and you made that decision. And if sometime later you realize that may not have been the best decision to make, at that moment, it was the best decision because you made it, own it, learn from it. Don't go back and try to relive it.
Yeah, I have to say, there haven't been many times when I truly, I right off the top of my head, I can't think of any that led me to a bad result following my intuition. Now, I may have called someone because I had a sense of something. Right. And after we talked through it, it wasn't anything major, but it was still, I could sense that something was different in their life. Something was going on. They were thinking about something. They had a decision to make. You know, they had hurt themselves, even however minor. It could have been any number of things, but there was something compelling me to call them.
Right.
And I would suggest to people that the only way you know your intuition, I think the trust comes through action. You have to follow it. You have to act on it. When you feel it, you have to act on it, because through the action, you'll begin to gain the trust, I think.
Absolutely. And to take those action steps with each one of these iPEGs, the iPEG, there is going to be a self-analysis for you. And I can post this out there for you and give you a copy, or when it's all over, you can have the whole worksheet of all 4 of them. But there does come a point in time when it's in our best interest to turn off the brain and to listen to what the heart has to say. And this is a little analysis. So ask yourself, when was the last time you listened to your brain instead of your heart? When you try to convince yourself that logically you should do this when intuitively you knew you shouldn't do it. And ask yourself, are you still happy with that choice? And if not, how would you approach it today? And then I want you to take a pause and listen to your heart now at this very moment. What is it saying to you? And realizing what goes on in the world also influences what it's saying to you. And then come up with some ways in which you can keep your mind, your body, and your spirit aligned so you can have a better access to your heart. Thoughts, Beck?
My response, especially on this conversation, this action, the ways we can keep our mind, body, and spirit, is for me going to come from my faith, right?
Right.
Building my faith, my beliefs in God, and following what I believe are his truths, gets that alignment, accomplishes that alignment. So for me, I'm not imposing that on anyone else, but whatever works for you to align those 3 things, for me, that's God, and God brings all of those things together for me.
And for a number of people, I would say that there are tools that you can use to help get you there. One is meditation. And it might be, if you're a very faith-based person, prayerful meditation that you bring to that. Another way, and we've talked about it many times over these several months we've been doing this, is to spend at least 30 minutes a day listening to something that's inspirational or powerful. Just like the comment made, if you're going to watch the news, watch the last 5 minutes because it's a feel-good story. Fill your mind and your spirit with that component of it. And then for your body, treat your body like the temple it is. Eat right. If you drink in moderation. Do some exercise. And I know I don't do this, but I should have some downtime. Just have some time to I know you shaking your head there. Have some time. That's your time alone, your quiet time, because that's what's going to keep that mind, body, spirit open. And the more open it is, the more you can keep it in alignment with what you've got going on.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And I think you have an extremely valid point about taking the downtime, the meditation, the quiet time, the prayerful quiet time. When we're on high gear all the time, we are not aware of what it's doing to our body. Right. I used to think that I could manage the job I had, the position I had. I had a large team and I traveled a lot, and I thought I managed pretty well.
You did.
Well, that was a misnomer to say I was managing pretty well, right? The team may have felt okay, but health-wise,
right,
I was not okay.
Right.
and it ended up that I took a different position, right?
Right.
And I have had to learn.
Mhm.
And thankfully, I learned before the health issues became serious.
Right.
But it wasn't until I had the annual lab tests with the physical results that showed the difference of where I was headed versus where I ended up.
Right.
So that downtime, and this is especially for you, my friend.
Yes.
You must give yourself that quiet time. You must.
You must. That's absolutely right. Folks, we're going to come back on Tuesday. I'll introduce the P then. I'm not going to tell you what it is, but it's something I am pretty passionate about. So there you go. But it's something that I hope that as we go through this, you can see based, what Peggy gave you guys this past week with the goals and the way you do your self-inventory. I hope this becomes like the second component that can then take what she put there and put it into some type of empowerment. Use these things, these tools, as a way to do that self-reflection, as a way to do that inventory, to say what it is. Anything you want to add, Peggy, before we sign off from here?
Well, this has been very intriguing. I love the conversation, and I'm not going to say anything more. I'm taking a guess at what the P is, but I can't wait to hear the P, E, and the G all together, right? And get the whole picture at the end. So I'm very excited for Tuesday.
And once again, I'm a firm believer that when you put something out into the universe, or you pray to God or whatever, things come to you. I'm a firm believer in that. And when we were talking about content and stuff, I was wrestling with, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? And I had no idea. And I ran across this document. It was just sitting on a shelf that I had not gone to for a long time. And I started looking through it, and I thought, I did that? I did that. But it's, and this stuff is, probably 8-10 years old. But considering what we're dealing with today, especially, it is so relevant. I think intuition right now is going to guide you and provide you with so much clarity.
Yep. I agree. So shout out to Kathleen and Becca and Betty for joining us on my end here.
And I have Luke and Malik. Hey, Malik, welcome. And Linda. So on my end. Yeah.
We hope to see you all back again next week, Tuesday and Thursday, same time.
Same
channel. Rooms.
Same rooms, same channel, everything. Peggy, have an amazing night. I will see you later on a team call we're going to have, but I will see you later. But have an amazing night.
You too. Bye, everyone. Bye.